Hey guys, this is the mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today as I take a deeper look into the most recent episode of Love and Marriage Huntsville, Season 5, Episode 8. I'm not doing a full episode recap as there are plenty of other content creators who do a great job covering the show. Instead, I'm going to focus on specific segments of the episode that I believe could be used as teachable moments for myself and the audience. So, the site is back up and running for astrology readings and tarot readings if you want to order one. The astrology course that I was developing has been redesigned and reimagined. So initially I was developing one large comprehensive course that covered the basics of astrology. But as soon as I was ready to launch, there were some technical issues with the LMS and the website that were beyond my control. And every time I tried to proceed, something else would pop up. It was like I was chasing problems. And from my experience, when there is resistance, either in relationships or work or life or education or whatever, resistance usually means that there is something that has to be reconsidered or you have to modify something. If you keep battering your head against the wall, then you're going to end up with brain damage or you're going to end up with a headache, right? Or concussion. So I was trying to figure out what was the universe trying to tell me when it comes to this course, because every time I tried to publish it, something else would happen that had nothing to do with the course itself. I've had to create several support tickets for the development team from the LMS to figure out why their platform wasn't working. Because I had used this platform many times before for my clients and for the work that I do, right? My professional real job, right? So come to find out after, a week or so for each ticket, their plugin, some of the features were breaking the LMS, right? So I was like, okay, instead of me being frustrated and very angry and impatient, because that's my personality, I do get frustrated and angry really easily. Just ask my mom. Instead of me being angry and frustrated, I was like, let me just figure out whether or not this is a lesson for me or if I'm being given an opportunity to do something over or to make it better. So what I decided to do was take the large comprehensive course and break it down into micro courses so that you guys can control the pace of your own learning and you can pay for what you want to learn, as opposed to taking one large course that consisted of 8 lessons and was relatively limited in scope because of the formatting of the course itself. The way that the course is sequenced, it doesn't really give room for a deep diving into certain concepts. That's just the way most learning is. So instead of doing that, I decided to deconstruct the course itself and turn each lesson into a micro course. And I'm adding a lot more content that was initially edited out because of the time constraints of developing a larger course. I'm adding that to the micro courses. So I'm going to keep you guys abreast about the progress with that. It should be released relatively soon. I'm going to keep you guys updated. I'm also going to do an astrological ascendancy reading for Tom Brady and his wife, Tia Mowry, Queen Elizabeth. There are some that I have set up so that I can continue to produce the content for the channel and also to garner more interest for the courses in the coming weeks. So during this whole process, I pretty much stayed to myself. I pulled back from social media. I went into hermit mode and I was like burnt out from the frustration and just the energy that I was using to push this course out by a specific date. And I just essentially had no energy or no desire to communicate with anybody. I just wanted to be by myself and I needed to rest. My birthday was on Saturday, October 29th. Yay! I appreciate the well wishes and the donations and the support that you guys have given me. I just wanted to be alone by myself. I was supposed to go live on Saturday to kick it with you guys, and then my niece, was in the mix, all up in my business, and I was like, okay, let me just fall back. And I didn't really feel like talking to anybody. Like I'm burnt out, honestly. I'm still burnt out. I need to rest and recuperate. But anyway, I haven't watched the past couple of episodes of Love and Marriage Huntsville because I was just so busy and I was so just focused on my work. But I did record some commentary 2 weeks ago about Carlos King complaining that we as an audience was expecting more from the cast. Someone in the audience told me that Carlos King was pissed because we did not like the direction that the show was going in, and we're the only community that puts so much pressure on our people's backs to be representatives of Black excellence and to represent our community in a good light. I will say this to that because I didn't watch what he said, right? I didn't watch his commentary. I'm just repeating what someone in the audience told me. Listen, and I talked about this last year or earlier this year. It is not fair for Black people in media to shame and browbeat us Black folks in the audience into accepting slop and garbage. This is what has been happening for the past 40 years in Black media, okay? We're portrayed as pimps and prostitutes and gangsters and whores and villains, right? And some of us are tired of seeing that. So we have the right to say we're tired of this bullshit. We want to see Black excellence in its truest form. I started watching Love and Marriage Huntsville because I wanted to see young, Black, successful millennials win. I wanted to kind of see a reality TV version of The Cosby Show, right? In a sense, because that's what I kind of grew up on. And to me, that's one of the best shows to represent Black excellence. I'm not saying that we have to be perfect. Nobody is perfect, but the ratchets are overrepresented in the Black community. White people have the luxury of having a Honey Boo Boo show, right? Or a 16 and pregnant show because they have 15,000 other shows in positions of power, in positions of affluence as doctors, lawyers, executives, captains of industry, heads of state. White people have the flexibility to be as ratchet as they want to be because they have a counter narrative that is a lot more robust, okay? And I'm going to say this. I'm really tired of Black people in media, in positions of power, telling us that we have to accept the bare minimum. I'm really sick of that. This is why music culture is garbage now. And this is why Kanye West is jealous of the Jews, because the Jews protect their culture. They protect their image. They don't tell other Jews to accept disrespect from their own people. We're always the ones who were told to just suck it up and be happy to be represented on TV at all. I don't have to accept that, so I'm going to complain about it, just like everybody else does when they feel they're being misrepresented as a collective. You're supposed to safeguard your image as a community. But what happened was these Black folks who are supposed to represent Black excellence because they have a seat at the table, right? They have access to resources. They're in bed with big wig executives that have billions of dollars to finance certain projects. We should expect them to be responsible with the power that they have been given. These people in media and entertainment are so hypocritical because when they talk about Black excellence, they always talk about what happened 50, 60, 70 years ago during the civil rights era, during slavery and Jim Crow and civil rights. Like, they always talk about the progress of our ancestors who were not perfect, right? They weren't perfect, but they knew the power of images. They knew the power of media. So we had people like Malcolm X who had a really hard life. We had people like James Baldwin who wasn't perfect, and Maya Angelou, and Fannie Lou Hamer, and other Black leaders who were not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. They weren't perfect at all. But as soon as the cameras went on, they made sure to represent themselves with class, poise, grace, and respect because they knew that images were being weaponized against them. And media was being weaponized against us to justify our genocide and our oppression. That is the reason why our ancestors safeguarded our image. And so we hold these people up as examples of Black excellence. At the same time, we're not willing to do what they did to exemplify that. So when racist Hispanics and whites and Asians and other groups talk mess about us, we always go back to what happened 67 years ago. At the same time, defending our right to disrespect their legacy by doing things that they would not do, by portraying ourselves in ways that they would not. You would not find a woman in the 60s twerking with her ass out. I'm not talking about dancers. I'm talking about the average Black woman, not the dancers who were in the nightclubs. No. And even they didn't act a fool on camera all the time. They had a job, then they came home and they were regular human beings. They were not walking caricatures 24/7. So what Black media and Black politicians and Black entertainers want us to do is accept the slop that's in front of us because we're just Black folks. We don't deserve no better. You don't have the right to ask for more. You should be happy to be on TV at all. Just shut up and dribble, right? So my disappointment with the direction of the show was not necessarily about me judging the cast members, because I don't expect them to be perfect. And I don't expect them to hold the world on their shoulders and to be the only examples of Black excellence on TV. I don't expect that at all. But I remember how this whole cast came together. I remember how they presented themselves. They presented themselves as respectable businessmen and women who were married, who were fathers and mothers, who were pillars of the community. That is the image they wanted to present. And this is why Marceau got upset when the name of the show changed, because he felt like he wanted to focus on business instead of personal mess, right? And so these people had the intention to portray a certain image to the community. They wanted to model Black excellence. They were all married before the show started, just about. They were all professionals. None of them were in the streets doing drugs and alcohol and twerking and committing crime. They weren't doing that. That's not the image they wanted to portray. So out of respect for that, I was disappointed. I wasn't disappointed with the cast. I was disappointed for the cast, because I know that that's not how they wanted to be portrayed on TV. They didn't want this kind of drama. Maurice was in law school before the show started. Marceau had his builder's license before the show started. Martell and Melody had successful businesses before the show started. Kimmy had a nursing license before the show started. They weren't putting on airs for the most part, right? They were actually doing the work. And so it was disappointing to see the show go in this direction. Not because we're judging anybody per se, but because I know what they wanted. I know what they were trying to do. And out of respect for what they were trying to do, I was like, damn. It's sad that it turned into this mess because of what was happening with the Holtz and all the other issues that are normal in dysfunctional relationships. All right, now on to the show. So for this episode, I am just going to focus on Keke and Tisha, because Keke talked about her drug addiction, how it was a dark moment in her life. Fine. You know, a few months ago, I said that Keke was upset with Tisha, not because of what she did, but because of why she did it. Keke wasn't necessarily upset with Tisha for telling Martell and Melody about her issues. It was the motivation behind it that really made it hard for her to get over. You can apologize all day for what you did, but you cannot apologize for why you did it. Tisha is a very competitive person, but she does it in a passive way. Tisha has been competing against her cousin since they were younger, right? I think she mentioned, that she was getting picked on in school for being from the other side of the tracks, being poor, whatever the case may be, and that gave her a complex. At the same time, her cousin Keke was perceived to be in a better position in life, had more money, had more resources, lived in a better neighborhood. And so a competition was forged between these two women, and it's still there to this day. When people compete against you and you don't know about it, they use you as a metric for their success. So because Tisha was always being compared to her cousin per se, I think she was always being compared to her cousin as far as lifestyle. In her mind, her cousin's very identity was an affront to her. Her cousin's existence as someone who had more resources, more respect, more social esteem, that was an affront to Tisha. That always threatened Tisha. When you're around people who are competitive against you, everything you do becomes an attack on them or confirmation of their own value. It's like they validate themselves based on your success and your failures, because they're always comparing themselves against you and competing with you. But most of the times, they don't tell you this stuff. They don't tell you they're jealous of you and they're competing against you. Because if they tell you that they're competing against you, then you would not be as receptive to them. You would not be as open and welcoming to them. You wouldn't share your resources or your time with these people, right? You wouldn't tell them your business. Because when people are competing against you, everything that you do is being collected as data and stored for future reference. So that if you ever fall on hard times, like Melody did, or like Keke did, Tisha would be the one to now say, aha, I am now in the position to make you feel the way you made me feel just by you being the way that you are. You weren't competing with me because you were always a boss before you met me. You were always that chick before I even came into the picture. But you being that chick was an affront to my identity because I had other issues that had nothing to do with you. So I use you as my competition. I'm not going to tell you that because if you know that, you won't bring me into your home. You won't loan me any money. You won't tell me your business, which I can use for future reference, right? To make myself feel better than you. At least my husband isn't doing this. At least my husband didn't buy his mistress a car. I remember that cafe scene in season 1 between Tisha and Melody because I don't want to keep bringing it up. I'm sure they've pieced things up by now. They're at least cordial. I remember at that point realizing that Tisha was not really Melody's friend. That was the first time I realized that. Yes, she made some comments beforehand, but when she threw her husband's mistress in her face that way, I said I wouldn't do that to my own enemy, much less somebody who was once my friend. I'm a woman too. I'm married too. I know how that feels. Why would you throw that in somebody's face? The same way Miss Wanda threw in Melody's face that Martell was questioning the paternity of her 5th child. When people are constantly competing against you, they will find any source of information possible to weaponize against you when they feel like they're in a position of power. Because now I can make you feel the way you make me feel. You didn't do nothing to me on purpose, but your very existence made me feel insecure. So now that I'm doing better in life, right, and you're suffering and struggling, I'm going to now use my newfound success and my newfound power to make you feel the way you made me feel, basically. And this is one of the reasons why Tisha wanted to believe that Melody was sleeping around with a bunch of men, because she was always competing against Melody, because she was always competing against her own cousin Keke. So basically, earlier in the season, we find out that Keke and Tisha have some beef because Tisha told the Holtz her business, right, about her challenges with drug addiction. And Marceau made it seem like he told the Holtz this to protect them from Keke. Marceau said, I wouldn't be a good friend if I didn't tell the Holtz this because I'm protecting them by telling them Keke's business and their dirt. At the same time, Marceau was the same good friend who watched his good friend Martell destroy his marriage, right? They did it together. They were cheating together. They were going to Atlanta and hanging out together. So apparently Marceau is selective about when he wants to be a good friend to Martell. This is why I don't believe the whole good friend shtick. I was telling them this to protect them from Keke. No. You told the Holtz Keke's business because you wanted to ingratiate yourself with them by throwing your family under the bus. And you did this because the Holtz could benefit you at that time, right? They have more to offer you at that time than Keke did. So I'm going to sacrifice my cousin to prove my loyalty to the Holtz because the Holtz have something that I want, whether it's money, whether it's resources, whether it's networking. They have something that I want. And Keke at this point is collateral damage for our professional aspirations. Both Marceau and Keke were responsible for telling her business. And they did this, I think, because they wanted to be on the show. That was one of the motivations behind it. And Tisha wanted to disassociate herself from her cousin's issues, right? At the same time, putting herself on a pedestal above her cousin because there was always competition between them. And this is why Keke cannot forgive Tisha for what she said. She's going to hold on to that. Because while Tisha may have apologized for what she said, she did not apologize for why she did it. She can't apologize for why she wanted to throw her cousin under the bus. Because then that would reveal the true nature of their relationship. I can't apologize to you for being jealous of you to the point where I would sabotage your opportunities. Because then I would have to admit that I'm jealous of you and that your troubles make me feel better about myself. Your struggles with drugs make me feel like I won. But I can't tell you that to your face because if I tell you that to your face, then I can't collect data or information about your struggles, which I need to use as ammunition. So if I'm not around you, I don't know what's going on, and then I can't gloat in private about your sufferings the way that she wanted to do with Melody. This is one of the reasons why I think that she was so upset about Melody falling back and pulling away from her, when she found out Martell was cheating, because I think Tisha was like a spy or an agent. She needed to be close to Melody to be able to compare her progress with her. And if she cuts me off, I don't know what my position is relative to her situation. I don't know how much progress I'm making because I can't compare myself to the person who I'm measuring my success and my worth against. I remember Tisha saying that Melody was not a good friend and that Melody uses people. And I was like, and I said this months ago, use you for what? This show was her brainchild. She was projecting because she was using Melody to validate herself, right? It's a win-win for Tisha. As long as Melody is successful, Tisha being her friend benefits her too because Melody's a very generous person. If Melody's going through hard times, Tisha wins also because now she can say, Melody isn't innocent. She's not a good friend. She's an opportunist. If she was doing this, that, and the third, then maybe her husband wouldn't have cheated. And this is why Melody is very particular about who she has around her. She has to be. Because when you're a woman who's beautiful, intelligent, and successful, you're going to attract haters who are pretending to be your friend just so they can get information from you to use against you in the future. So just to recap this again, right? Keke's upset with Tisha because she feels like Tisha threw her under the bus because she was happy that she was suffering. Because Keke's suffering means that Tisha won at life, or she won in that particular round, okay? And that is why it's hard for her to forgive her. Tisha did the same thing to Melody. That's why Melody does not want her around her anymore. Because I know you only wish me well because that benefits you financially or socially. And it will benefit you financially and socially to the point where at some point you may get enough resources and power to eclipse me or to think that you're on my level. That's the goal, right? The goal is to either be on the same level as the competition or to be at a higher level socially or financially than the competition. So you want to use me to climb up the social ladder. And then when you think that you're on my level and I, go through struggles, we all go through struggles in life. We all have to suffer. Nobody wins forever. We all have to take L's. But when you have people around you who are competing against you, your L's become their V's, their victories. Because they wanted you to fail to make themselves feel better about them. Now, your perceived perfection is no longer a threat to me because I don't see myself as perfect. I was bullied as a kid for being poor. My mom can't talk right. I have a speech impediment, blah, 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 blah. My cousin's more, is in a better neighborhood than I am. She has more money than I do. People respect her family more. All these things that create a complex within someone to the point where they feel the need to compete with everyone, even people who are not aware of their existence. I don't even know you, but you're hating on me. How and why? What happened? Melody is the type of person who competes with herself, but she also has something to prove. I'm not going to get into what it is, but she has something to prove too, right? I think she talked about that with Dr. Francis in season 2 about her wanting to make her family proud, especially since her father was not there for her growing up, and he may have acted like he was ashamed of her and she was someone who should not be seen, who should be hidden. And so now Melody's like, no, nobody's hiding nothing. I'm all out here for you to see. But I'll discuss that at a later time. So yeah, just to recap this, Keke has the right to be upset with Tisha and to not trust her ever again. Because instead of being a loving, supportive, empathetic cousin, Tisha will gloat about her cousin's struggles. She would gloat about him. She'll give you a hug. I'm so sorry this is happening. This is so messed up. I feel bad. I wish I could do something. But internally, she's happy. Because now people can no longer compare her to her cousin in a negative way. Now it's, oh, Tisha is on a TV show. Tisha is married. Tisha doesn't have any issues. Look at her cousin. I remember growing up, Tisha didn't have nothing, and her cousin had everything. And now the roles have changed. They flipped around. The same thing with Tisha and Melody. And this is why it's hard to have people like Tisha in your circle. Tisha and Destiny were talking about Melody and whatever the case may be. I don't think Destiny necessarily had the same relationship with Melody that Tisha did. I don't think so. But Tisha is nobody's friend, in my opinion. She's not Destiny's friend. She's only cool with Destiny because they both have an issue with Melody. That's how these fake friendships are forged. And then stuff happens down the line to prove how fake it was. We're only cool because we have the same enemy. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. That's it. We ain't cool like that. Now, I'm not saying this to create beef and strife between the cast members again. I'm just helping you guys understand why it is very difficult for some women to have friends, and even some men. Because if you are a beautiful, successful woman, right, who gets what she wants for the most part, there's always going to be somebody who's jealous of you. And these people will try to be your friend. They will insist on being your friend so that they can benefit from you in some way, shape, or form, right? And then once you're suffering and struggling, two things may happen. Well, three things could happen. One, if they were really your friend, they'll help you out. Number two, they'll gloat about your failures and your pain and suffering and leave you alone. And three, they'll just abandon you and leave you hanging because you can't do anything for them anymore. I don't need you no more. I don't have to respect you anymore. I don't have to pretend to like you anymore. I got what I wanted already. And the only reason why I was insisting on being around you while you were going through your divorce is because I wanted the tea. I needed the tea to validate my own happiness, to prove that the person who I thought had everything has less than I do now. That's the point. That's the objective. You cannot keep people like that in your circle. And if you're like that yourself, there's a possibility that you may attract people like this. Either way, right? If you're constantly competitive, you're going to attract people who are competing with you or competing for you. That's the energy. Okay, so yeah, Keke, being addicted to pain pills is not the end of the world. Like, mad people go through that problem. That's something that's very common in the United States. Pain pills are very addictive. And for them to use that to try to make her look bad and not be sympathetic to her experience. And Melody was like, they were happy about it. They were gloating. It was a joke for them. But I bet you, Tisha was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry this happened to you. I wish I could do something to help. This is so bad. Meanwhile, he, ha, ha, ha. I may be from the other side of the tracks, but at least I don't have an arrest record. At least I'm not hooked on drugs. That's how these people think. And that is why Melody was on a scorched earth campaign when she first got divorced. Because at a time when she needed people the most, they weren't there for her. They were laughing at her. They were celebrating her pain in secret, in spite of everything she tried to do for people in her circle. Sometimes people are jealous of you for being in a position to help them in the first place because they feel like you're sunning them, even if they need your help. The fact that you have the money or the resources or the network to help them makes them feel envious of you. This is one of the reasons why Destiny doesn't like the fact that Stormy gave her the bag, because you try to flex on me. Why would you see that as a flex unless you were insecure about not having money in the first place? Why didn't you see it as a kind gesture? And if it was a flex, so what? She got more money than you. You knew that already. Everybody knows that. Stormy has more money than everybody on the show. So, that's not a secret. Why are you threatened by that? Because you always had a problem with that. You always had a problem with the fact that she had more money than you. And you weren't going to say it actively. You were just going to pretend to be cool with her to get access to whatever resources she had to benefit you. So it is what it is. Mark's brother is disgusting. Why was he sweating when he was sitting down in the park? Was his shirt inside out, or was that the way it was designed? Because some shirts, the serging is on the outside of the seams. Why was his shirt inside out? He looked slovenly and ridiculous. Why was he even on the show? He's irrelevant. Irrelevant, petty, vindictive, and broke. And sweating when you're sitting down. So a couple weeks ago, I asked this question. I didn't post this commentary because my audio was awful. It was a bunch of technical stuff happening a couple weeks ago. But anyway, a couple weeks ago, I asked, why do bald men have like ridges in their skulls where the hair used to be? Some bald men don't have that. Like Martell's head is relatively round and smooth with no indentations. There's some men whose heads, the hair is gone, but you can see like a meat imprint of where the hair used to be. So they have like lines going across their skulls. I always wonder why that was necessary. There are some men like Michael Jordan who have a smooth bald head with it's this one shape. It's like smooth and round and even. But then there's some men with meaty skulls. And the hair is, I always wondered why, and all three brothers have this problem. Anyway, so yeah, they were trying to basically tell him to fall back from insulting Miss Vanessa. Even if they had something that was none of anybody else's business, he was just butt hurt that Miss Vanessa didn't want to claim him. That's all. And men do it all the time. So whatever happened was their business. Why are you broadcasting it on social media? That's a grandmother. But his slovenly behind wants to be on TV also. So let me sacrifice Miss Vanessa's reputation as a Christian woman. Let me throw dirt on her name so that I can look good on TV. I can look like the man. That's all. That was his motivation. But anyway, I'm happy that the cast is trying to turn over a new leaf. It was sad when they were talking about the comeback group and how they got started, because I remember how hard they were fighting to stay together, but the Holtz had so much stuff going on in their relationship, and then Martell made things even worse. It was just rough, and it was, people like me who wanted these people to win. I felt bad for them. I felt bad for the whole cast, but mainly Martell and Melody, because I know this is not the way that they wanted things to play out. And in the coming weeks, wait, what happened? Was this recorded before or after Martell had a blow up on social media? Jesus Christ. Yeah, it must have been before, because they were sitting together and not trying to rip each other's heads off. So it must have been before then. Relationships are complicated. There are ebbs and flows, and you're not always going to see eye to eye or be on the best terms. But there has to be an agreement that when we're at our worst, we won't do certain things. We won't hit below the belt. But sometimes when you're dealing with narcissists, you have to go all out, because they don't give a damn about nothing but justifying and protecting their own lies. That's it. All right. Anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your support. I look forward to reading your comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.